My name is Chuma Chinyo, and I am your family lawyer. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 1988, and I have over 35 years' experience in family law practice. I've helped countless families navigate Nigeria's complex legal terrain, and I am desirous of bringing this knowledge and expertise to you free of any charges. My name is Chuma Chinyo, and I am your family lawyer. I'm your trusted legal guide, always here to shed light on the often misunderstood world of family law. Today, we'll explore the dreaded post-marital issues of alimony, spousal, and child support. Have you ever wondered how courts decide who pays what after marriage ends? Well, we're in the right place at the right time, because that's what we're going to talk about today. Sit tight. Let's do it. Let's dive into the nitty-gritty of alimony and child support and discover how it affects both parties and the children post-divorce. First, let's introduce the concept of alimony, which is also known as spousal support. It is a financial obligation one spouse may be required to pay to the other after a divorce. But the big question is, how do courts decide on the award of alimony? Truth, several factors come into play, including the length of the marriage, the standard of living during the marriage, the lifestyle you acquired and kept, sustained in the course of your marriage, and of course, each of the spouses' financial situation at the time of the divorce. Just in case you did not know before now, there are diverse kinds of alimony, which you may be ordered to pay by a court. I will explain some of them to you in very plain language. First, there is the periodic alimony, which involves regular payments made by one spouse to the other for a specified period, or sometimes even for a lifetime. This type is often taken as a first charge from your income if you're a salaried worker and paid over to the woman or man that you now loathe or abandon. They will take your money, you no longer want him or you no longer want her, but they still take your money and give to him or give to her to sustain the lifestyle that the two of you were accustomed. Now there is lump sum alimony. Lump sum alimony is a one-time payment made by one spouse to the other. The kind that you read in the papers or social media that Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates paid to their ex-wives. If you have the kind of money they have, you don't need to bother. You can pay that and still be one of the world's richest men. If you're like me, avoid divorce, avoid alimony. Then there is a rehabilitative alimony, which is a temporary financial support provided to a spouse to help them become self-sufficient post-divorce. This is a compassionate spousal support often paid to a divorced stay-at-home mother or one who is unwell or unable to work for some reason. Bear in mind that stay-at-home fathers have also arrived in Nigeria. They are here amongst us. So we may need to consider them when we talk about spousal alimony. There is permanent alimony, which is the ongoing financial support provided to a spouse until remarriage or until death or a court-ordered modification of the alimony. Trust me, you don't want to enter into this one chance. This is the type that has wrecked many men, particularly in the Western world. There is one called reimbursement alimony. That is a payment made by one spouse to the other for expenses incurred during the marriage. Like when she brought something to the table. Gen Zs talk about that a lot now. She brings something to the table. When she's going, she will take something from the table. It's important to note that when you need to make payment for alimony, several factors are taken into consideration. It is not just arbitrary. The court is allowed a wide room of discretion, but that discretion must be judicially exercised. And that is to say, when alimony is to be ordered, the court takes certain factors into consideration. They have the power to take those factors into consideration in the way they deem best for you. The matter has left your hand from the moment you decided to divorce. So they take into account your income and earning capacity. That is the financial resources of both spouses will be put on the table and the court will look at it in making that determination. The court will also look at the length of your marriage. If you've been married for 35, 40 years and you want to leave your wife, you will pay plenty, plenty. A lot of money will be taken from you and given to her for all that you have rendered in society and service. Then, of course, the standard of living both of you enjoyed during the marriage. If you are touring Honolulu, Dubai, and the world during the course of your marriage, at least your wife should be able to go to London and Paris thereafter. Now, further, the court looks at the age and the health of the estranged couple. How old are they? Who is feeble? Who is now weak? Whose health is not too weak that the person cannot earn income? If you are the stronger one, you need to think about providing money and care for the one that you're leaving in poor health. You didn't meet that person in poor health. If you're leaving the person in poor health, you have to provide for him or her. The arrangement for custody of the children of the marriage is also one of the issues that the court considers in awarding this alimony. If you are keeping custody, the court will take that into account. Then the court looks at what you brought to the table. That is, what in the course of this marriage, what have you done to make the marriage work? How much money did you bring? How much time did you devote? How much effort? How much sacrifices did you make? They are taken into account. Of course, it is based on evidence. Many will wonder, if this order is made, suppose I don't obey now. Trust me, you will obey unless the other party is not able to pursue you and chase you to the end of the earth. First, the court will hold you in contempt for non-compliance and you might go to prison. There also sometimes, if you are working somewhere, deductions are ordered from your salary or from your bank account. And then your spouse will garnish your account through a court process. That is to say, seize money that is there until you fulfill your obligations. Then they can attach your properties. That is, go and seize known properties to realize the sum of the alimony. If there is change, they will give to you. But then you may ask also, what if after the alimony is ordered, there is a significant change in the financial status of either party? Because we will modify that order as far as it is possible to take note of the present circumstances. If after alimony was ordered for a man to be paid to a wife, and the wife becomes a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or becomes a bank MD, or begin to earn a lot of money, of course, the court will look at it and review that order and adjust the support. Perhaps it may sound too far-fetched. You may now be the one to pay if your wealth has become too much more higher than that of your spouse who was paying you alimony. It's possible. Now, the big question, what happens when a spouse remarries and paying you alimony to maintain your lifestyle, and then you find a big man and you get married to, or you find a rich woman and you get married to her? What happens? Generally, the law is that the recipient spouse who gets married may have that alimony terminated because your former spouse cannot be paying you to sustain your new marriage. So now we have demystified the concept of alimony, broken it down for you in bits and pieces for you to understand. So whether you are facing a divorce or just curious about the legal landscape, to understand these concepts will help you navigate the complexities of post-marital financial obligations. But there is just one more critical type of support you should know about if you are considering or you are already neck deep in divorce, because it just doesn't stop at alimony. If there are children or a child of that marriage, we need to consider how that child will survive. And we need to take a look at the attitude of the court to support post-divorce. Let's define what this means. Child support is a financial assistance one parent gives or provides to the other for the expenses involved in raising a child of the marriage when both parties are no more husband and wife. The goal is to ensure that children receive the same standard of life they were used to while the marriage was blissful. So the court looks at how much we can do, how much can be done to keep the child living the same standard as if both parents were still together. That child or the children didn't cause the divorce. You caused it, so you pay to keep the children enjoying as if they were still living with the two of you. The court will typically determine the issue of custody of the children of the marriage first before apportioning child support. So, how does child custody influence child support payments? Well, the answer is simple. The parent who has primary custody typically is the one who would receive support from the non-custodial parents. In other words, if custody of your children is given to your wife, you, the husband and father of the children, will pay some money to her for her labors of love and to keep the children going. To enable her cover the daily expenses, the education, the health care, and other essential necessities of raising a child. And it's all about ensuring the child's well-being, regardless of which parent they live with. The children are not meant to suffer for the decisions that their parents took, for the choices they made, including the choice of no longer being married after they have brought them to this world. Now let's talk about a question that is nagging. The moral and the ethical basis for child support payments. Just beyond the legal obligations that we've talked about, parents actually have a moral duty to provide for their children. It's not just about the money. It's about ensuring that children of broken homes have a stable, supportive environment to thrive in. When the court orders a parent to pay child support to the other parent, it's not usually punitive. It's not at all times about just providing money. It's at all material times, actually, about ensuring the child's needs are met and that the parent involved is bound, actually, under law and by God to fulfill this God-ordained obligation to his or her child or children, irrespective of how the parents feel about each other. What happens when the parent trust me, this will have very severe legal repercussions, including wage garnishment, that is seizure of your wages, taking a lien on your property, and even imprisonment. Enforcement mechanisms are in place to ensure compliance, and penalties for non-compliance truly can be quite severe. But why, for God's sake, will a parent who can refuse to bring money for the upkeep of his or her own child? It beats me. But we'll take a quick look at one or two instances where the courts have had to intervene regarding alimony first. Then we'll tell you a second story about child support. In a certain case decided in 2013, a Mr. and Mrs. Ethan were involved. They were married in 1991 and they had two children. In 2029, they went their separate ways. Then the wife asked the court to order alimony. In other words, the husband should pay her alimony. The trial court granted the respondent alimony, but the husband refused to pay. Instead, he went to the Court of Appeal. And when he got there, the Court of Appeal said to him, look, we have discretionary powers to grant alimony, but we take into account the circumstances of each case. And it includes that we consider the income and the earning capacity of you and of your wife. We look at the financial needs and obligations of the two of you. We also look at the standard of living that both of you enjoyed during your marriage. And the court reminded him, your age and your health status are also important. And the duration of the marriage that you have dissolved, and how much both of you brought to the table in the course of that marriage. When they had reminded him of all of this, the court said to him, you must pay the alimony to your wife because she has financial needs that she cannot meet. She can no longer meet because she's no longer married to you. So go and pay the alimony that was ordered by the High Court. It's obvious from this case that, yes, the courts have discretionary power, but in the judicious way the Court of Appeal went about it, it's also very clear that that discretion is exercised based on the facts and the circumstances of each case. If you have money and you not loathe or dislike or hate your spouse, it's irrelevant. You have a duty to provide something for her so that she doesn't go out from her marriage and begin to suffer. Now, we'll take a look at a similar case that involved payment of child support. A family that was once enjoying a thriving marriage, family of Mr. and Mrs. Mwachuku, decided to go their separate ways. Their marriage came asunder, as we say, under attack, and then they could not stay married. They had two children again, and then the marriage was dissolved in 2007. The respondent, that is to say, the wife of Mrs. Mwachuku, in fact, was granted custody of the children of the marriage, whilst Mr. Mwachuku was asked to pay child support to the wife. Believe me, shocked as I was to learn as I studied this, that he refused to pay. He said he won't pay for his children's upbringing. Instead, he went to the Court of Appeal to challenge the order that asked him to train his children. Shameful, if you ask me. In looking at his case, the court's primary consideration was to say, look, what is the best interest of the children of this marriage? What are their financial needs? What is the income earning capacity of both Mr. and Mrs. Mwachuku? What standard of living did these children enjoy during the course of their parents' marriage? And what are their educational and health needs? I thought the court had reviewed all of this based on the evidence that was brought before the High Court. The Court of Appeal held that the quantum of child support must be reasonable and it must take into account the financial resources of Mr. Mwachuku. And then the court ordered him to pay for the upbringing of these children until the youngest of them attains the age of 18 years, so they could possibly become self-sufficient. In truth, child support is always about what is best for the children. We know about the Child Rights Act, which reinforces the rights of children to be raised in sane and decent environments as much as is within the powers of the parents. This is what the court just emphasized in this matter. We have talked a little bit earlier of what happens when a spouse who was granted alimony remarries. But the same situation can arise when a spouse is paying child support to another. What happens if the spouse receiving the alimony remarries? Generally, remarriage doesn't affect child support because it's not the child that is remarrying, unless there is a significant change in the circumstances, such as if the new spouse's income substantially alters the financial landscape. In other words, the woman is cooked with two teachers whom you divorced and you were paying pittance, now gets married to a billionaire. The court may evaluate these changes to determine whether there is need to modify the support that the husband is paying. But trust me, I just wonder, why would you want another person who is wealthy to take care of your child? If you ask me, I would rather continue to pay for my child's upbringing, so at least I can lay claim to the fact morally that I did so. But that is me. I would not, because my estranged spouse is married to a rich man, abandon raising my own children. I will try to continue to do my best to do so. Besides the legal considerations, let us be real. And as I say, let us be legit to ourselves. Few men, and arguably fewer women, will be comfortable with their children being in the custody of their ex, who is now cuddling up with a new spouse. Then imagine how tough it will be to see yourself funding the new couple. If you marry a pauper, for instance, simply because your child is living with them, the envy, the jealousy might be unbearable. To a reasonable extent, contemplating these heart-wrenching scenarios should discourage people from embarking on divorce, even when the marriage don't sour. Sometimes, divorce is like jumping from frying pan straight into the fire. My take a deep look before you leap. A word, they say, is enough for the wise. Now, my final word on alimony and child support is that I am an ardent advocate for fairness in the resolution of marital disputes. And I will never support the unsavory practice of a man throwing out his wife of several years into the street. And she may not even have had children for him. She may not have been able to bear children for you, but you can't throw her into the streets empty-handed. She may have even committed adultery, but why did you throw her into the streets empty-handed? A woman who has labored with a man to build a family will enjoy some form of proceeds if the marriage doesn't last till death do us part. I'm nevertheless disinclined to support the business model that marriages in the Western world has become, where men lose almost all of what they have toiled for, even before they met their wives upon divorce. Let me take that again. I don't support the idea of marriage as a business. You marry a man, you divorce him, and you take virtually everything that he has. Though you shouldn't be left empty-handed, arrangements for divorce should be fair, and in my humble opinion, should be judicially discouraged in this climb. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Your Family Lawyer. Until next week, when we'll continue our deep dive into what it takes to run a family, I would urge you to stay informed and be empowered. And I would like you at all times to be good to your family. My name is Chu Machinye, and I am your family lawyer.